This morning, we're having a conversation with Marie-Philippe Bouchard. She's the new CEO and president of CBC Radio Canada. She's touring the country. Today, she makes a stop in the Queen City. She joins us now in our studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
So far, what has surprised you in your new role?
Well, you have to know, and your listeners have to know, I know the company quite well. Mm-hmm. I worked for CBC Radio Canada for 29 years, starting in the mid-'80s, and I left about 9 years ago to head TV5, so a specialty service more focused on the francophonie. So I know the company quite well, but I know that it's changed. One of the things that strikes me most when I visit the stations, and I started out west in Vancouver, I'm making my way east, is how, and I knew that by listening and by consuming content, but how people have become so multi-platform. The processes in the stations are completely, focused on getting to digital and also serving radio and television. And that has changed the craft. It's changed the way people actually seek information and explain it and format it for viewers and listeners and users. And it's also, I can tell, stretched the way people can work. So that's a big change from 10 years ago.
We talk about the current political climate we're in. There's so much happening. We have a new prime minister designates. We have an election on the horizon, which could be called any day now. When you enter this position now at this time, what do you make of what CBC's future is in this, divisive political backdrop we're in?
There's been a discussion, a lively discussion about CBC's mandate for quite some time now. It's been on the books for the current government for a good 5 years, and there were discussions more recently to really get into a new mandate and a new look at the way we're financed, and that actually led to the current minister's filing of a green paper in that respect. And concurrently, there's also other visions of what CBC should or should not be, how it should be financed. And so I think there's going to be a healthy debate. And I say healthy because it's not normal that a public service media has a mandate that was written back in 1991. That was pre-internet, just to make it clear. We do need a new mandate, and we need consensus around how we are financed and what we are focused on. And so I welcome the debate. I hope that it happens in a thorough fashion. And I notice that there are opposing views and there's probably other views as well out there. So I think the election is going to be a time for that to happen. This is not the time for me to take a position in this, because our job one during an election is to actually cover and inform citizens, Canadians, who are going to have to vote. So our good journalists who are well-trained and have very robust standards will be covering, and I will be quiet during that election and take stock of what Canadians decide, and then we will work with the government to make it work.
What have you made of the Prime Minister designate and the outgoing Prime Minister talk about the need for a strong public broadcaster?
Well, this is something I believe in personally. I think public broadcasting enriches people's lives. It also fills gaps that it's not the only thing that it does, but it does fill gaps that other types of media, be it commercial or community, cannot serve other purposes. And I think we are, and certainly in the last few weeks, we've seen how much we need to be connected together. We need a sense of community. And it's hard with our geography and our history to feel our connection. I think national media with deep roots in each of the regions has that ability, and there's not that many out there anymore. We're still very much rooted in the regions, in the different regions, and we are able to connect people together. And I think that's an asset that Canadians have and that they can value.
You mentioned the last 2 weeks what's gone on, and there's been this rise in nationalism, this rise in patriotism, waving Canadian flags. How does CBC fit into that? Can CBC capitalize on that in any way?
Well, we are all about telling Canadian stories. That's our purpose. That's what we do. Other media have other, outlooks. They have more American content. We have Canadian content. That's what we do. And we tell Canadian stories from a news perspective and from a cultural perspective. So I think this is our bread and butter. This is really our mission.
You talked about local there. Let's get into that. So what's your vision for local, and does the CBC have to expand its reach in different communities? I know there is a plan for that. What's your vision for that?
Well, I think that's where you build trust, and that's well documented. And unfortunately, through the last, I'd say 20 years, there have been, deep cuts in the CBC in prior governments, and that has led to some lack of ability to reinvest in places that have grown from a population standpoint, and particularly in the West. There's been growth in population in the West, and we haven't followed. So there's an initiative right now that's in the field. I mean, it's the jobs have been posted yesterday to reimplant journalists in communities that are not served at this point, not only are not served by CBC Radio-Canada, but are news deserts. And this is job one. This is really job one. And this is how you build from the trust that you build around, being connected to what matters to people in their day-to-day lives and what happens around them, to be able to connect communities together and have a national view, and then have a sense of where Canada is in the world and how our world events affecting them. So this is really the basic part of providing a public media service, is being deeply rooted in the region. So I believe strongly in the movement that's already started, and that I would like to increase.
How does CBC reach listeners and viewers and readers that may not trust our journalism or may have become disillusioned, or you talk about places where we're not reaching audiences where we haven't been?
So there's physical proximity. If you are actually boots on the ground in an area and you show up, showing up makes a big difference. And I feel it when I come here, when I come to Calgary, when I come to Edmonton or Vancouver. Showing up makes a difference. And having a team or a reporter, even a single reporter, in locations and are present in events that occur in that location builds trust. That's the first thing. The second thing is proximity in sense of sensitivities and it's a matter of who you have as a guest, how you approach issues, and having a network that is close to different sensitivities and different points of view helps in order to bring a national perspective.
The CBC will be receiving money from Google, an American company, as other media are. What's the plan for that, and how do you navigate the use of that money when it's coming from an American corporation?
Well, it is the federal government that negotiated that deal, so it's not an agreement between CBC and Google directly. Mm-hmm. It goes through a collective that actually distributes the money according to a certain formula. But it is the responsibility of the federal government under their legislation to ensure that that agreement is in place. I understand it's in place for 5 years, so that will flow. Money will flow to CBC. Other media may do whatever they want with it. What we have chosen to do is reinvest in local service. And that's how we are able to open positions in various localities that have not had service recently. Sometimes it's to double up where there is a real need, and sometimes it's to start fresh and send boots on the ground to new locations.
When it comes to your vision for CBC and the backdrop that there is, a movement to defund CBC coming from opposition parties and others, what's your vision over the next couple of years as you navigate this?
Well, I think we have to show, not tell. That's the best approach because we are a service organization. We do serve Canadians. I think we improve the service. That speaks for itself.
How would you like to leave CBC when your time is done here?
Well, there are segments of Canadian population that I think we are underserving right now, and that are less likely to come to our services, and that's newcomers and also youth. Younger Canadians who are more deeply involved with social media and don't necessarily consume any Canadian platform. I would like to have made a dent in that, have created programs or ways to reach them, probably on platforms that they use as opposed to our own, certainly for young people, but maybe also for newcomers. I think it's the future. We have to build for the future. And so if we've made progress in that, I would be happy. And also, if we could be known as the best listening organization in the country and maybe in the world in terms of public broadcasting, being very attuned to what our citizens are needing and feeling, I think that would be success.
Marie-Philippe Bouchard, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.